Planning theory equips me to see the invisible forces, unbalanced powers, and vested interests at play in practice. A planner whose education is rooted in theory will be able to unpack the underlying assumptions, deconstruct and closely examine justifications, and frame substantive, assertive, and sound responses for every urban policy that he or she is part of. As an equity planner, the response will be based on the belief in equitable distribution of our dwindling resources and a pledge to serve the most vulnerable communities in our society and uphold their right to the city. In the 2 years I served as a social architect at Selco Foundation, I was fortunate enough to bear witness and participate in a number of urban experiments to address the inequalities in the supply of housing in Indian cities. Bangalore, like most other Indian cities, is home to some of the most vulnerable urban migrant populations in the world. They are the daytime domestic helpers at houses, the cleaning staff in malls and IT parks, the sanitation labor that unclogs the drains, and the rag picker that recycles the trash. Yet the workers that toil all day with their hard physical labor cannot find room in the very metropolis that they build and run. Unlike slums that have tenure security and ad hoc urban services, these informal communities are scattered like invisible dots in the urban landscape, at risk of displacement at any time. The Housing for Urban Migrants, or HUM project, was envisioned to tackle this problem with the dual aim to design temporary, dismantleable, portable shelter solutions and to document, advocate for the rights, and carry the voices of people whose stories are shunned within the insulated chambers of power. The idea was to push for a permanent policy solution while addressing their immediate needs. We believed that by taking a human-centric and community-led design approach to crafting shelters, schools, health clinics, and shops that can be easily transported to a new location, we can build resilience to the trauma of evictions within the communities. As an architect, I was trained to seek an architectural solution to the problem as it is presented in front of me. My task was to design an affordable portable shelter with structural strength. But an exposure to planning theory made me realize that the problem in question was merely the symptom of a deeper root cause. Personal reflection upon reading the concepts of equity planning theory led me to contemplate on the experiences our team continues to face while executing the project. The theory cleared my lens to see the housing disparity not as a result of simple coincidence or of market forces, but because of an urban development process that has been historically and inherently exploitative of the poor. I realized that the modernization of Bangalore, deployed in the British era, embeds colonial notions of the ideal Western city. Today, in the neoliberal era, it is deployed to advance a paradigm of development conducive to capital accumulation and to the establishment of an entrepreneurial world-class city, a paradigm enforcing selective exploitation and exclusion of the poor. The effort has effectively colonized the collective imaginations of the city's planners, developers, architects, and politicians, and exposes the invisible forces, unbalanced powers, and vested interests at play in practice. According to K. Srirangan at the Bartlett School, University College London, the failure of the public land policy to deliver the right land to the right person at reasonable prices prompted a downward filtration of high-income groups and the unauthorized occupations by the poor. Thus, the fundamental issue with the housing supply in Indian cities is the lack of choice for the majority migrating rural poor, trampling their right to the city. In India, the planner's traditional role is to be an apolitical technician serving a unitary public interest set by the state and the market. But through the HUM project, we deviated from this conventional posture and devoted ourselves to provide more choices, specifically to those who had few. The project allows us to demonstrate value in taking action in favor of the vulnerable, represent human stories through graphs and faces through numbers, and provide alternative short and long term solutions and policies. Most often, we had to position ourselves diametrically opposite to law enforcement, real estate interests, and political power brokers in decision making rooms, and depend solely on our tenacity to curate the treatment of their cataract vision for the city. This similarity to the work of Norman Krumholtz and his team of motivated planners in Cleveland in the 1970s led me to recognize that our team at Selco Foundation was essentially practicing equity planning. I believe a planning education rooted in theory helps equity planners to paint the portraits of communities through words and arguments and expose invisible forces, unbalanced powers, and vested interests in front of powerful men. At the ground level, practitioners will need to be humble listeners, able to forge a human connection with vulnerable people. They need to be able to captivate people, hold their trust, help communities navigate power structures, and through the power of knowledge, shed light on the invisible shackles that bind them from achieving their full potential.